My name is Kelly, and I have an unhealthy obsession with serial killers. Edmund Kemper. Hi, this is Kelly with some bite-sized killers. Wait, no, king-size killers and bite-sized bits. You think after saying that I'd get it. And we're going to talk about Edmund Kemper. And he's fascinating, I think, because he's certified genius. His IQ was, I think, 146. And so when he was 15, he was living with his grandparents because he could not get along with his mother. His mother didn't care for him too much. She apparently was nice to his sisters, but not so nice to him, and he had to sleep in the basement. And there was no light, nothing, just his bed down there. So it wasn't, the comforts of home or anything. And he used to talk about hearing the rats scurry around. And that's how he went to sleep at night. So finally his mother made him move in with his grandparents. And his grandmother was just like his mother, which drove him crazy. And one day, while his grandmother was sitting at the table, he walked up behind her and shot her in the back of the head. And he was real close to his grandfather, and he said what was going through his mind at the time was he didn't want his grandfather to have to live with the fact that, his wife had died. So he waited for his grandfather to walk in, and when his grandfather walked in, he shot and killed him as well. So he convinced them that he was insane, and he spent some time in a psychiatric hospital for the criminally insane. And when he was 21, he convinced them that he was cured. They released him, but they released him back into the custody of his mother. And so it wasn't long after that is when he became the co-ed killer. Now, his mother worked on the college campus, so he had this sticker in his window that would allow him to travel on and off campus with, I'm sure anyone who's attended college or, had to have, any sort of sign, in your car window to get you on and off of the property. And so he started out testing himself, and he'd give these girls a ride, and, he wouldn't kill them. He'd see if he could refrain from killing them. So he would pick up these girls and he'd give them a ride. And then one day, he picked up a couple of hitchhikers, and they got into the car, and he said he knew at that moment that he was going to kill him. So he drove, and of course it didn't take him very long to figure out that they weren't going where they thought they were going. And so he stopped the car, and he took one girl out of the back seat and put her in the trunk. And then he took the girl from the front seat and put her in the back seat and raped her and stabbed her to death. So then he goes and he opens up the trunk, and of course her friend sees all the blood all over him and asks, what happened. And, right then, I don't even know if that would cross my mind, like, what happened? I mean, I would just be like, fuck, I need to get out of here. That would be going through my mind. So he told her that she had cut herself, or she had a nosebleed, I think it was. She had a nosebleed, and that she needed help. Well, he ended up murdering her as well. And he would drive around with these girls, and he got pulled over with these two dead girls in the trunk of his car. And of course he got out of the car, and he was 6'9", so he was an imposing figure. And he got out, and he had, obviously asked the officer what was going on, and the officer said, well, you have a brake light out. And Kemper said, oh, well, it must just be a short in the trunk. Would you like to see it? And the officer was like, no, 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 you seem fine, as long as you get it fixed. And that struck me, because I'm like, that was brazen. And one of the interviewers a while ago asked him, what were you thinking? And he said, I was going to kill him. So the only thing I could piece together is that he was going to open the trunk and kill the officer and put the officer in the trunk with the girls. But so he was interesting. He had sex with their dead bodies. He would decapitate them, and he took those girls home to his mother's house, and he dismembered them. One girl he murdered, he actually buried her head facing upward toward his mother's bedroom window. And when asked why he did that, he said, because my mother always wanted people to look up to her. And I was like, wow. And his mother was an alcoholic and would berate him constantly, even as an adult. So, he, in interviews, stated that the rage that he felt for his mother was the reason that he killed these women. So, he killed around 10 females, all pretty much college age. I believe that there were a few that were younger. So after, he'd been doing this, he would literally have heads in a duffel bag, taking them into his mother's house. And he just thought that he was brazen. I don't think he really thought he was smarter, like, he wasn't narcissistic. He just was like, most part was just like, if I get caught, I get caught. So there was one night he came home, and his mother had walked in or came home, and she was drunk, and she was in her bed reading a book, which I don't know how those two things go together. But he walked by her room, and she made a snarky comment about how, oh, I suppose you want to stay up all night and talk. And he decided right then and there that he was going to kill her. So he waited for her to go to sleep. And once she went to sleep, he went in and he bashed her in the head and killed her. Then he decapitated her, used her head as a dartboard, and put her esophagus down the garbage disposal. Now, if that isn't some rage, I don't know what is. That screams some serious mommy issues. So after he completed that task, he called her best friend over for dinner, invited her to dinner, and murdered her. And after he was done, he left the house, and he drove around, and he pulled over, got into a phone booth, called the police, and said, hey, I'm the one you're looking for regarding the co-ed murders. And I think, if I remember correctly, which I could look this up, but there was something about them not believing him or something. But finally, the police arrived, and one of the officers said that when they pulled up, he literally filled out the entire phone booth. And when he got out of the phone booth, he put his hands on top of it. So he was just an imposing individual. And so he calmly turned himself in. He was indicted on 8 counts of first-degree murder in 1973. He pled not guilty by reason of insanity. He tried to commit suicide twice while in custody, but his trial went ahead in October of 1973. They did appoint like 3 different psychiatrists, and they all deemed him legally sane. So one psychiatrist put him under truth serum, and he relayed the account that Kemper had engaged in cannibalism, alleging that he had sliced the flesh of the legs of the victim and then consumed them after frying them and then putting them in a casserole. but they thought that he was fully aware of what he was doing in each case, and he recanted the confession of cannibalism afterwards. So it was a quick trial. So in November of 1973, they declared him guilty and sane on all counts. Um, he asked for the death penalty and requested death by torture. He instead received 7 years to life for each count of murder, and they were being served concurrently. And he said after he had murdered his mother, everything just went away. The rage went away. The need to act out like that went away. And it was just, I mean, he's actually very interesting to listen to. He's written books while in prison. He's very soft-spoken. I mean, he's very articulate, which is kind of scary if you think about it. But he's been somebody that has fascinated me for a while, but I never really studied him too much. And there's still a lot more for me to. This is all just off the top of my head, from what I've been reading lately about him. But he is still alive, and he's 71. He's being held at the California Medical Facility. I assume due to health issues, being 71, being in prison, and being that large. He looks pretty bad. He was denied parole again in 2017, and he'll be eligible again in 2024. And at this point, he's been in there so long, and I would think that would be your life. You would kind of resign yourself, and to come out into a society today, I don't know how you would function. You know what I mean? Because prison life is all you know, and you come out, things are just flipped upside down from when you went in. He has been incarcerated at the same prison block as Herbert Mullins and Charles Manson. So that's interesting. He showed a considerable disdain to Mullen, who committed murders at the same time in the same area as Kemper. And he described Mullen as just a cold-blooded killer, which I can't understand the difference between the two of them at that point, and that he killed for no good reason. So Kemper manipulated and physically intimidated Mullen. At one time, Kemper actually threw water on Mullins to shut him up. It's like, Jesus. And then he would feed him peanuts because Mullen liked peanuts. And Mullen also liked to sing, which is why Kemper threw the water on him. And so by giving him the peanuts, Mullen would start to ask for permission to sing. And he called it behavior modification treatment. So he had to have something to do while he was locked up, I guess. But he did participate in quite a few documentary videos. And so, like, I don't know, I would recommend watching them just to listen to him talk, because he's very matter of fact. And I don't know if he's ever apologized for what he's done, but even when talking about it, he realized what he was doing was wrong, which kind of goes against the insanity of defense. Kind of wonder if they ever get like a little circle together and just talk about things, I would want to hear that. So anyway, that's my little tidbit on Edmund Kemper, the co-ed killer.